Welcome back to the arena. I'm Michael Corrin. Yes, I am. And it's the Friday Rumble. Brilliance and beauty in one segment, and that's just me. Yeah, whatever. Desmond Cole is a journalist and commentator who sits a little left. Our very own Marissa Simcue, well, she pushes left sitters right off their chair. So it should be fun. Hello, both of you.
Hi.
Doesn't matter. Let's begin with, this is very interesting, juxtaposing the reaction of, say, Canada, North America, to what happened in Australia and what happened in Pakistan. Now, what happened in Australia, I mean, they're both appalling, but they both involved innocent people. And in Pakistan, it was 150 innocent people. But I think there was more natural empathy. We saw an empathy, a sympathy with Australia that we didn't with Pakistan. Am I misreading that?
No, I think you're actually completely accurate in stating that. On paper, I think most people look at it and recognize that 150 people is a lot worse than 2. So why is that? For goodness sakes, when you watched the Sydney siege, people were just in awe what was going on. It was wall-to-wall coverage on every single media outlet. And then when the Pakistan terrorist attack happened, it almost seemed like various sort of incremental updates throughout the day, but it wasn't wall-to-wall. And I think there are a number of reasons for that, primarily because America and the Western world's become desensitized to the level of violence that we see in the Middle East.
Well, it was not the Middle East. I mean, it's South Asia. Or have we become indifferent to the suffering of people who aren't white?
Well, I hope not. I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, perhaps. I think it has more to do with the fact that the terror threat is different. You know, we went from the evolution of terrorism is quite interesting. It evolved from state actors to this sort of guerrilla type warfare where we were fighting, you know, large terror cells, which is ultimately what we saw in Pakistan. Pakistan, which by the way is not as expansionist as say someone like ISIS. They are limited primarily to Afghanistan and Pakistan, the Taliban. And then you see what's happened in Australia, and that's a new wave of terrorism that we don't really know how to deal with. It's this sort of lone wolf, homegrown radicalization.
We woke up to Pakistan. It happened at a time where we in the morning we were told it had happened. We saw Australia happening before our very eyes. I don't think it makes us in any way malicious people that we identify with a city like Sydney when you live in Toronto, Montreal, or Winnipeg, because I mean there is that identification. But there's also sort of the racism of lowered expectations almost. You think Pakistan, well, it's always happening there. The numbers may be shocking, but almost you're not shocked?
I think you're onto something, right? Because I think when you say we feel sympathy, the question is we who? So if we're talking about the media in this country is predominantly white. I mean, there's no getting around that. That's just who makes up our media.
Well, the South Asians in media today, actually.
Comparatively speaking, most of our media is white, correct? I mean, I think we can establish that. And so all I'm saying is that people in Australia predominantly are also white. And when people think about, maybe there are a lot more people even in the media who have relatives and connections. It's a Commonwealth, it's connections to Great Britain. Maybe these sympathies are part of the reason why people look at a tragedy like that and they relate it to themselves versus looking at Pakistan and perhaps looking at it more from a distance and seeing something. Because, you know, people said with Australia, do you think it could happen here?
Of course.
Right? People didn't say that.
Inevitable question.
People didn't say that about Pakistan.
Because Pakistan is a country where there is really no rule of law, where acts of terrorism occur almost every day.
But you can have somebody go into a school and kill 22 children, and we don't have that word terrorism attached to it, even though it's happening to us, right? That's where I think the difference in this conversation goes.
Is it anything to do with the nature of Pakistani society? I mean, even at Supreme Court and government level, they have a blasphemy law. They turn away from terrorism. They know what is going on. And there are regions of Pakistan where the Taliban kills people all the time.
Exactly.
And the government does little about it. Australia is a country where we assume safety. There is a rule of law. There's a civilized behavior. I mean, I don't think there's one aspect of this. I think the equation is is packed with all different attitudes. Some of the negative, some just obvious.
Well, it hit home to a certain extent because you saw, I mean, the imagery that was shown was the Shahada flag with the Lindt chocolate and then the Starbucks or whatever building it was. And, you know,
Clash
that's
cultures,
the type of thing that really hits home, I think, to Americans because you see, oh, well, that looks very similar to what we have here in our own society.
Yeah. Let's move on to Cuba. I have to say, I don't know if there's any sort of party line on this, but I think what Obama did, and most of what Obama has done has been pretty weak in his administration. I thought opening up to Cuba, I approve of it 100%.
It's the
80%, shall I say.
Okay, I think it's the absolute right thing to do. I think when the President of the United States says, we've had 50 years of non-relation and it hasn't worked and done anything, I think he's absolutely right. I think this is a huge victory for the people of Cuba and for American Cubans who have, defected and come to live in America and who can now freely visit their families.
Not sure if they'll see it that way.
I'm not confident at all that this was the right decision. In fact, there are 3 Hispanic senators in the U.S. Senate that are all 3 Cuban American who disagree with this. I'm going to take my advice from someone like Marco Rubio or someone like Ted Cruz, who actually know what it's like in Cuba. And I'm not confident that if you open the borders to trade, we'll see a trickle-down effect to the middle class.
So how do things change if you don't allow people to travel freely?
There is nothing in lifting this embargo that says you have to change your the amount of human rights abuses that take place.
No, that's not practical.
Moreover, you need, in order to create an embassy in Cuba, you need confirmation from the U.S. Senate. You need to fund an embassy.
Yeah,
you need to appoint an ambassador. And how are you supposed to do that without confirmation when Mitch McConnell has said, "I will defer to Marco Rubio"?
Let me put this. Look, I think actually Cuban Americans are going to vote Republican in large numbers over this. I don't think they approve of it. However, people in diaspora communities often are 20, 30, 40 years behind the times of reality. I think the Cuban regime is dictatorial. I think it's almost despotic. There are very few civil liberties. I think in terms of education and healthcare, though, they've done rather well. But we know America-backed dictatorships not very far away that were far more oppressive than Cuba.
Ding, ding, ding,
we know they have alliances with Saudi Arabia, which is theocratic.
I agree.
With Pakistan, where there's a blasphemy law.
And I have been very critical of the United States' relationship with Saudi Arabia. I think absolutely that's something that we should pull back from. We know that oil talks, though. When it comes to Cuba, a lot of people have compared it to Nixon and China. And you have to wonder, what is America getting from this deal apart from another trade partner? It's not like Cuba is a major trade partner, or would be. When it came to China, I mean, there was a lot more to gain.
From a conservative point of view, Venezuela is an issue for the West and for the United States. It's wealthy, there's a lot of oil, and they have an alliance with Iran as well. Venezuela is exploiting that Cuban vulnerability right now with a lot of investment. If America takes part in that investment, if anyone will suffer, it'll be Venezuela.
I mean, I just think that in general, countries that want to fix relations that they have in other countries or address even human rights issues that are in other countries have to talk.
But they're not.
Sanctions on apartheid South Africa?
That was the right move because they tried to talk and it didn't work, right?
I'm just throwing that in. We have to break. When we come back, we've got lots more to talk, including dogs and Christmas, and don't you dare go away. The rubble. Now, this issue here, it's not quite as large, I suppose, as Sony or Cuba, but there's a woman who said that when she dies, I think she's died now, that she wants her dog, who she loved very much, allegedly to be killed and for the dog to be buried with her. Well, the dog's still alive. I mean, that's appalling. If you love someone or something, you don't want that to suffer, but it's horrible.
Yeah, but it's her will, and I think her will trumps the life of this dog in this instance. I say it, because the dog doesn't have the same rights as a human, for instance. So had she euthanized this dog a day before she died, this would have been perfectly legal. This would have been perfectly legitimate, and no one would be even questioning it.
So the law is the last word.
I'm saying that, well, this is a woman who died, and we have to, at a certain point, recognize that the will is the last word. And as soon as we start changing that after someone's death, we open a very dangerous,
set a very dangerous precedent. The law triumphs over everything else.
The law triumphs over this in this instance.
Okay, so if this woman said, I want my daughter to abort her baby, and that's legal, that would be okay? Look,
well, I'm obviously not pro-abortion.
No, you're pro-life. You're a loving person, and this dog is a creature. It has a right to live until it dies naturally.
I'm not saying it's insane. I'm not saying it's not weird or insane. I think it's terrible.
I think it's wrong. I think it's totally wrong. I don't care about the weirdness. It's wrong.
It's totally wrong, but the dog doesn't have the same rights as a human being.
No, and I don't believe an animal should have the same rights as a human being, but it should be respected, not killed out of...
And what I'm trying... No, but what I'm trying to say here, Michael, and I think that there will probably be a tremendous amount of backlash at this woman, and people will probably adopt him, but what I'm saying is, I think we open a very dangerous sort of Pandora's box when we start altering a woman's will after she dies.
I'm going to half agree with you, only half, because I agree that she can put whatever she wants in her will. It's her will. But I bet you that she was in a really state of grief and confusion when she wrote this. Because think about it. Think about it. That means then you have to take your dog, someone else, because you're dead, has to take your dog to a vet, and the vet says, oh, what's wrong with it? Is he sick? Oh, no, you know, the woman wanted it killed. And I bet you that no one would do that, right? They wouldn't actually carry through
There was a case not that long ago where someone put in their will, well, there was one in Canada, I think it was, where they wanted, left all their money to a white supremacist group. There was a case in Britain a few years ago where the will was the house to be sold, but only to a white family. Should that be allowed?
You know, I think that when it comes to private property and distinguishing things like that, it's extremely tricky. I think that the court of public opinion can settle that, because I think it should be publicized that the person only wants it sold to a white only, and then people can make a decision.
Well, they can spit on their reputation, but still, I suppose, respect under law their right to do that. But to kill a creature which is well and is not deserving of death,
But it's not illegal.
No, it's not illegal, but the law has often been wrong.
It may be insensitive, but that's her will.
But if a woman just kills her dog because she feels like killing her dog, that's illegal, right?
No, it's not. I mean, there are laws against animal cruelty, but there are no laws against euthanizing a dog at any point.
Well, no vet would euthanize a healthy animal.
That's what I'm thinking, and that's why I think that she probably didn't think this through, because you're really asking someone to do something quite against their conscience.
Actually,
I'm not saying it is completely insensitive. It's terrible. I'm not saying that it's a good thing, but I'm saying I think it's dangerous when we start altering a woman's will after she's.
I think the reason she did it,
illegal.
The reason she did it, and I don't think this has been exposed. We have the dog's will here, which says, "I don't care what you do, just kill that stupid bloody woman because she's a real pain in the." Let's move on to the. I mean, this is a very interesting issue, and this is an athlete. LeBron James, is this the name of the athlete?
He's a basketball player.
Basketball. I've heard of basketball. Yeah. Now, he wore a T-shirt saying, I can't breathe. It's been worn by many people, and this refers to a man who died at the hands of the police when he was saying, I can't breathe several times. President Barack Obama has said, good idea. I think athletes should speak out. Good idea? Right thing to do?
No, I think that he is perpetuating. I mean, when you look at the Eric Garner case, obviously no one disagrees. No one would think that this is anything but tragic. But the fallout of it has led to this false narrative that police officers are somehow killing black people left, right, and center.
Well,
and I think that no, they're not. And
Maybe
I think
it was in his will.
And I think it perpetuates that false narrative. I mean, this is a small incident. This is one incident, and it's been pushed and inflated into this sort of large.
Incident?
This is one incident.
I'm sitting back at this point.
This is one incident. This is one incident of police misconduct that has been inflated and blown into this narrative that police are somehow killing people, black people left, right, and center.
So when you say that it's being inflated into this narrative, the T-shirt says, I can't breathe. That's what the T-shirt says.
Correct.
So if people want to infer from that, as for example the NYPD police union did, that means that everyone hates police officers, let them misinterpret it that way. This is black men standing up as role models, which we always tell them that they're not doing, by the way, in their own community, because of something that was not tragic. I don't agree with you with that. It's actually criminal what happened.
Well, there's actually no evidence to suggest that what happened was racist. It was indeed police misconduct. There's no evidence to suggest that it was racist. And where's the black community when the fact that, you know, of the thousands of deaths among black Americans
you're
annually,
going to do this. You're going to do this, are you?
Over 93% of them are black on black. Where's the black community in the slums of Chicago?
They are there. Hang on. So I want to address what you just said, because I'm afraid it's very ignorant what you just said. They are there. Black leaders in the black community are the ones there. White people are not going into those communities. So you're wrong on that count. But if you don't want us to protest Tamir Rice, Mike Brown, Trayvon Martin getting killed and stalked by a man who was not even a police officer, and you say that it's not about race, do you know that the man who killed Eric Garner was sued for strip searching 2 black men and trying to humiliate them by touching their genitals? You didn't know about that, did you? But you want to say that this isn't about race.
There has been no evidence to suggest that what happened to Eric Garner is was based on race.
You're not paying attention to the evidence of case after case after case. If you can say that, if you don't think that
so you would actually suggest that there's a phenomenon in the American police force, specifically the NYPD in this case, that there's some sort of phenomenon that they are more inclined to kill black people than they are white people.
I am saying that they are racist against black people, that they are afraid of black men.
Based on what evidence? In fact, police officers, how many black men were killed in New York just last year by the police officers? Maybe 6?
I don't need to offer you any evidence of the police being racist, because if you're not looking at what's happening in America and you have to ask if the police are racist.
You haven't given me any
No,
evidence.
I don't play this game, okay?
It's not a game. In fact, you're perpetuating a dishonest and false narrative.
There is a disproportionate amount of black people being killed for the population of black people in the United States by police, most of whom are white.
Both of you, I was told I was out of time about a minute ago. But what I'm more than prepared to do is to have you both back here and give a full segment, a long full segment on its own to this issue. I really do have to break. This is the last Rumble before Christmas. We didn't exactly end it on a Christmas note, but I do appreciate both of you, your passion and your intelligence. Thank you very much indeed.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Let us know what you think. Email to thearena@sunmedia.ca. You can find me on Twitter @Michael Coren, and we'll be right back. Don't go away.